Well, here we are, another season of hockey. But this isn't just any NHL season. We've got a new uniform manufacturer after Adidas didn't want to renew their contract with the NHL. Instead, much to the dismay of many sports fans across the globe, Fanatics took the helm. If you somehow don't know who Fanatics is by now, simply put, they're the sports merchandise equivalent to Amazon. Both started as an e-commerce business before becoming bigger for better or for worse, and moved on to making their own products in addition to selling other products from other companies. Fast forward to 2017 when Adidas took over the NHL license, Fanatics was also in cahoots with them making NHL merchandise. The two companies made hats, shirts, and even jerseys. While Adidas had their Indonesian-made Authentics, later Prime Green, as well as their hard-to-obtain made-in-Canada Authentics, Fanatics made the base-level breakaway jerseys. However, unlike the previous base-level Reebok Premier jerseys which came before, many fans harshly criticized Fanatics' attempt from flat and shiny logos to using heat-pressed numbers and nameplates, as opposed to stitching and multi-layered front crest logos. The only thing improved from Reebok Premier to Fanatics Breakaway was switching from heat-pressed logos, which were notorious for peeling off, to stitching down the logo, but that's it. There have been many reports of numbers and nameplates peeling off of factory customized jerseys, not sure if they ever used stronger glue later down the line. Quality was going down, but the price surely didn't, and if you got a factory customized Fanatics or Adidas jersey with a name and number on it from the Fanatics website or even a Fanatics affiliate website, you better pray that they got everything correct. Sadly, jerseys weren't the only product affected by this. Fast forward to this year after Fanatics worked with Nike and MLB's recent uniform template released this year, which was announced to be slated for replacement before the All-Star break, by the way. Fanatics delves headfirst into making uniforms for a league. Before, they were working with other companies like Nike and Adidas to help make and release their products, but for the first time now, they're working by themselves. They did sign a 10-year deal with the NHL to make this happen. For the first handful of years, Fanatics jerseys will be identical to the Adidas template minus the shoulder dimples. That's strictly an Adidas thing. And surprisingly, these jerseys are pretty good. I've heard that the fabric is fine and the front crests aren't made out of crap. Both were major concerns of fans when the changeover was announced. So what will happen once Fanatics is tasked with creating their own templates or even their own alternate uniform programs? No one knows yet, though many suspect that Fanatics will cheap out after putting out a quality product to hook us all in. This is also far from the only time where a different company took over for a league after Adidas and still used Adidas templates. Just look at New Era's first year in the CFL in 2019 after their own stint with Adidas. Personally, I'm praying that they put their all into it after seeing the countless promotional videos they made in the lead up to the jerseys being unveiled. This is, after all, Fanatics' biggest opportunity to shake their terrible reputation and be on good terms with sports fans for once. As for other news, more teams have come out this year with ads on jerseys. It all started with the helmet sponsors after COVID, then followed up with some teams adding a sponsor patch to the front after seeing how much money every NBA team makes off of having ads on their jerseys. We were told that the helmet ads were just temporary, but no, they were only the gateway drug. I'm not surprised that this happened, but it doesn't mean I have to like it. I'm now praying that these don't end up like what the WNBA has. But unlike the NBA, some teams have different ads for their home and road jerseys. I don't even think soccer does that. Feel free to correct me. So if that leaks into the NBA, you'll know where the inspiration came from. I do find the helmet sponsors less egregious because they're much easier to ignore and forget about, so I'm not going to comment on them unlike the more prominent jersey ads. But much like the NBA's first season under Nike in the 2017-2018 season, not every team has a sponsor patch on the jersey, meaning those fan bases not affected can rejoice until an official announcement gets made. With last year's categories, I felt I overdid things because unlike other leagues who will update looks, no one besides the NHL just straight up goes back to an exact look from another point in time. For crying out loud, in the NFL, the Buccaneers and Browns 2020 redesigns aren't exact to what came before because they kept the helmet from their previous Nike redesigns. Examples like the Oilers and Senators, aside from being in the Adidas template, are exactly like previous looks that both teams have sported with little to no differentiation. So instead, I'll designate every return to a previous look as a redesign, with the exception of the Bruins because their redesign last year was only meant for their 100th anniversary, whereas other in-between designs like the Oilers wearing orange lasted more than one season. With that out of the way, we've got garbage for tragically awful beautiful designs. Needs a redesign, which is self-explanatory. Meh for unis that I simply don't care about. Good redesign for all the redesigns I like that stretch back to 2014, as I feel a decade tests whether or not it was a good idea to change the team's look. Decent is reserved for good designs that stretch back from 2005 to 2013, as they're older than other redesigns and not quite 20 years old, which leaves room for them to get replaced. Or I like the uniform sets from expansion teams that aren't a decade old yet. And classic for designs that I like which are 20 years old and have stood the test of time in my eyes. Unlike last year where teams revealed alternate jerseys during the season, Fanatics isn't going to release any new alternates until next season, though I wouldn't doubt teams will still reveal new alternates meant for next year during the season regardless, meaning I might have some TikToks and YouTube shorts to make in the meantime. So throughout the month of October, join me as we venture into the first year of a very hated company making uniforms by themselves for the very first time. I promise it'll be fun. Our journey begins October 1st with the Western Conference in the Central Division with the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks. Established in 1926, the Blackhawks are the oldest team in their division and one of the later original 6 teams, meaning that they were one of 6 teams that the league had for 25 years up until the 1967 expansion, debuting the same year as the Red Wings and Rangers. Fun fact, the team named Blackhawks was originally 2 separate words until the team decided to make it one word in 1986. Why? Just because. The name stemmed from the US 86th Infantry's Black Hawk Division during World War I, which in turn was named after Chief Black Hawk, a prominent Illinois figure. Their uniforms have been an evolution, starting with the biggest change coming in 1955 when they switched from barber pole stripes to red, 1965 when they went to the current version of the logo, and finally they switched to their current layered number font in 1973, with last names being added in 1977 as per a league-wide mandate. When will MLB implement that? Ever since then, the red home and white road have been spectacular no matter which company's template it gets used on. I don't mind the collar tweak they had in 2019, as their 2017 to 2019 Adidas collar was criticized for resembling a toilet seat, but honestly I'm so used to football collars that I was unfazed by the original look. The Blackhawks are also unique in that their main crest and shoulder logos are chain stitched, with the only other team in sports that features chain stitching on their everyday uniforms being the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm really happy that Fanatics kept the chain stitching on the Hawks jerseys after hearing how the Cardinals had to fight Nike to keep theirs, and that the Phillies lost their chain stitching on their jerseys. Yeah, other NHL teams have had chain stitching on specialty uniforms like Winter Classic or Reverse Retro, but the Blackhawks are the only team in the league to have this full time. Last year they teased the black alternate returning and even had Bedard and Tommy Hawk wear the Mitchell and Ness version the night they retired 7 for Chris Chelios. Needless to say, I can't wait until next year. Yeah, the black jersey was worn during the team's dark days, but it'll always be cool no matter what. I did give my thoughts on their Winter Classic jersey for this year on TikTok, but for anyone that hasn't seen that, I like it. Fanatics did a good job and they could have easily have done the 40s jersey, but they didn't, and instead opted for a faux back look. No joke, but I want one for Christmas this year. There's only one flaw with the Hawks uniforms for this year, and that's the addition of the ad patch for the first time ever. The sponsor is Circa Sports, a sports book that's made its way to Illinois and previously seen on the Golden Knights. Like I mentioned in part 1, I expected this to happen, but man did it have to be gambling. But the only reason it's here is because these gambling companies pay up the ass for league sponsors. Just ask DraftKings. Though you'll never see an American or Canadian team sport a beer company's logo on a jersey, even though both gambling and drinking have ruined people's lives. Seriously, drink and gamble responsibly. Regardless, the Blackhawks are without a doubt a classic that has withstood the test of time, even when native team names and logos are being targeted. Tomorrow we travel down I-55 to examine the Blackhawks Winter Classic opponent and longtime arch rival, the St. Louis Blues. St. Louis Blues, one of 6 teams to debut in 1967, the Blues were named after a 1914 song called St. Louis Blues by W.C. Handy, as well as pay tribute to St. Louis's music heritage. Their uniforms were a constant evolution until 1995 when red started to leak into their color scheme. Possible nod to the Cardinals? Okay, it was an accent color starting in 1984, but this was excessive by comparison. They'd have a redesign for 1998 based on alternate introduced the year prior, though it'd get the Reebok Edge treatment with vertical piping and fangs for some reason in a 2007 update. St. Louis would drop the Reebok piping in 2014 for a more normal core look that was tweaked a little in the Adidas changeover, which we still have now under Fanatics. The home blue looks dynamic with the addition of navy to go with the royal blue. Same goes for the white road as well. I do prefer the yellow numbers from the Reebok days over the white numbers, just made the jersey more unique. I do dig their 60s throwback introduced in 2018 after debuting in the 2017 Winter Classic under Reebok, and their 1995 throwback that they wear once in a blue moon, but I still have to talk about. The 60s throwback is a nice, simple, and clean look, and I even dig how the logo is skinnier than the current one. The 1995 throwback, while not their greatest, is enjoyable in my eyes for its 90s cheese in the same vein as a Nicolas Cage movie. Their ad patch has been Stifle since the 2022-2023 season, a St. Louis-based bank, as the Blues were one of the early adopters of ad patches, and Stifle even has their sponsor patch on Cardinals jerseys too. I'll take a bank sponsor over a sports book any day of the week. I'm editing this and it's actually pronounced Stiefel. Sue me, I don't bank in St. Louis and it's not available in Chicago. As of the time of this recording, their Winter Classic for this year hasn't been revealed yet, but if the Blackhawks Winter Classic is anything to go by, this has to be good too. I'm expecting faux back as well. So overall, with the Blues going back to this design in 2014, that puts them under good redesign. They should definitely stick with this for the foreseeable future in my eyes. Tomorrow we channel our inner man-bear pig to look at the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild. Introduced in 2000 after the North Stars moved to Dallas and even won a cup, Minnesota decided to name their new team after the state's wildlife and outdoors, or to be frank, everywhere outside the city limits of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I've traveled through Minnesota and it is truly beautiful out there. Their jerseys in the early days alternated between wearing green or red most days like your indecisive spouse before a Christmas party, until any and all red jerseys were dropped once Adidas took over. Their current home green debuted in 2017 to kick off the Adidas era, and it's fine, I guess. My biggest distraction is the wheat stripe going through the middle like Montreal, but it doesn't continue on the back, and it's the only jersey to feature this. Why? Many theorized this was done because the logo is dark and would get lost in a dark green background, and yet they had no problem with that before. I also don't like the lack of a bottom hemline stripe, making this look like a nightgown. Now, the wheat on the arms has a red stripe going along the top, and yet that's not on the body. Why couldn't that be brought to the middle? It's as if this was turned in before they truly finished it. This iteration of the Road White was introduced in 2013 under Reebok, and it's got a hemline stripe. Why didn't Adidas or even Fanatics for that matter just take this, color it green, and call it a day? Minnesota introduced a Kelly Green alternate last year, dubbed the 78s to reference the North Stars, and was identical to their second reverse retro used in the 22-23 season, and the subject of a rebrand rumor that the organization shot down this past offseason. Besides, I thought Minnesotans were trained at this point to hate green and yellow. On its own, this looks nice, and I dig the State of Hockey patch on the shoulder and the captain patches being inside the state itself, but honestly, looking at how the colors are laid out on this, I'm surprised the Wild haven't used this template. All you need to do is darken the green, replace the yellow with red, and replace the white with wheat. Like the Blues, the Wild adopted a sponsor patch for the 22-23 season and went with Tria, and they specialize in orthopedics. It looks okay on the jerseys, but nothing to get too excited about. Honestly, with how swing and a miss Minnesota has been, they need a redesign. The road is okay, but the home is honestly one of the worst jerseys they've worn. They've got a fantastic color scheme, but I don't think this shows it off the best. Tomorrow we're heading to the Music City to look at the Nashville Predators. Nashville Predators. Debuting in 1998 right after the Oilers fled Houston for Nashville, the Predators were predominantly navy blue until switching to predominantly gold and yellow in 2011. This was an interesting choice as gold and yellow used to be a substitute for white way back when teams wore their white jerseys at home. Yeah, there was also their alternate from 01 to 07, but the yellow from the Mustard Cat, as it was dubbed, ain't got nothing on this. Now, why Predators? Does Chris Hansen have a stake in the team? No, this references when the partial skeleton of a saber-toothed tiger was found in 1971 during the construction of the first American National Bank building in downtown Nashville. So after wrapping our brains around the fact that now we've got yellow on white matchups for every game played in Nashville, or wherever else the Preds are designated as the home team, the original gold and yellow jerseys used the same template as the Blues 2007 Reebokification. I just invented a new word. Third, while the vertical piping and fangs look awful and tacky on St. Louis, they fit right at home with Nashville, especially the fangs, and also help break up the yellow. And yet Adidas got rid of all those details in 2017. Hey Fanatics, I think I know something from the Reebok era you should bring back. The blue cuffs and hemline still remain on the gold and yellow home, but without those extra details, you definitely get a sense that something's missing. I do still like it, especially for its prominence of yellow adding to the uniqueness. The white road definitely got the biggest upgrade with the addition of yellow on the cuffs, shoulders, and hemline to both break up the white and stand out more than the previous Reebok version. If I could add anything to their lineup, it would be a navy blue jersey in the form of a color swapped alternate or even a 1998 throwback. Considering the Tampa Bay Rays debuted the same year and have their 1998 throwbacks in their uniform lineup, I don't see why the Preds haven't jumped on that. Last year, Nashville added Regions Bank as their sponsor patch, and man is it distracting seeing that bit of green with the yellow and navy. Yeah, sadly, this is an example of a sponsor patch that sticks out like a sore thumb. Now, what to classify this as? I classify this as a redesign because not only did both the home and road lose their fangs and piping, but the white road was completely changed from its Reebok equivalent. And while I'm not too crazy about the home yellow, it doesn't feature any distracting details like the Wild's home green. So overall, Nashville is a good redesign, but like mentioned, I wouldn't mind some Reebok elements making a return. Tomorrow we travel further south to examine the Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars. Originally known as the Minnesota North Stars in their 1967 debut, the Stars dropped north from their name in 1993 when they moved to Dallas. No longer named after the Minnesota state motto, now they're named after Texas being the Lone Star State. Plus, Dallas North Stars makes no sense unless it's being north of Houston, I guess. The North Stars uniforms were a constant evolution since their debut, with black being added as an accent color in 1981 until completely taking over a decade later, along with the jerseys just saying Stars on the front in anticipation of a relocation. After the move to Dallas, the team would gain their most iconic look in 1997 in the form of an alternate based on some previous All-Star jerseys and featured a star design across the entire body. The team would adopt this look full-time in 1999 after wearing it in their only Cup win. Dallas would keep this look until the dreaded 2007 Reebok redesign, which even Stars fans that grew up during that time admit that they suck. Reebok redeemed themselves in 2013 with the Stars' current look, and after 11 years, the home green and road white still look immaculate. They do kind of resemble the Blackhawks, especially that special St. Patrick's Day jersey from the Reebok era that I want so badly. However, at least they're a different color among other different details, such as a different hemline stripe and different number font. Fun fact, originally they were planned to be colored red, white, and blue like the Texas state flag. Dallas had a black alternate come out in 2021, and while many dislike it, I actually dig this jersey. They claim it's meant to reference Dallas nightlife and even went so far to call the green used on it skyline green, but I think they just wanted to do a black jersey again. It does look like the green should glow, it doesn't. Though if anyone owns one, how does it look under a black light? No ad patch, so good for Stars fans this season. Now, many people would love to see the Stars go back to their late 90s and early 2000s look, as that was more unique compared to this typical looking uniform set. As cool as that be, I don't think it's necessary. Overall, with this being over a decade old, the Stars have been promoted from good redesign to decent. Tomorrow it's the Mile High City's turn with the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado Avalanche. Originally debuting in 1972 in the World Hockey Association as the Quebec Nordiques, the team would keep its name when they transitioned to the NHL in 1979 up until relocating to Denver in 1995. Of course, the name is pretty explanatory for the mountainous state of Colorado. They also changed from the Nordiques color scheme of blue, white, and red to a darkened version of that to not only match their new roommate the Nuggets, but also match Pepsi, as their arena at the time was the Pepsi Center. Ever since, their uniforms were mostly the same from 1995 to 2007, with the shade of burgundy used darkening in 2000, with the biggest deviation being the Reebokification in 2007. The Avs would keep this look throughout the entire Reebok era, and with other teams dropping the Reebok piping throughout the 2010s and bringing back hemline stripes, Colorado just looked jarring. Thankfully, they returned to something more familiar in 2017, albeit with the absence of black for some bizarre reason. And ever since, the burgundy home and white road look incredible and were much needed after that Reebok version tainted our eyes. The subtle designs of the sleeves and hemline resembling a mountain will never get old. They've still got their navy alternate introduced in 2015 and returned in 2018, referencing the Colorado state flag, and even Denver's previous NHL franchise, the Colorado Rockies, who became the New Jersey Devils in 1982. The only thing I hope happens as related to this franchise is that the Quebec Nordiques come back into existence, but unfortunately due to market size and language barriers, there's a fat chance. That and blah blah Gary Bettman. There's also no ad patch, and Avs fans can rejoice for now. So all in all, the Avs are a good redesign. Come back tomorrow for our first trip across the border as we look at the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg Jets. Introduced in 1999 as the Atlanta Thrashers, the team moved to Manitoba in 2011 after bad ownership had ruined hockey in Atlanta for the second time after the Flames fled for Canada in 1980. Fun fact, I thought the name stemmed from a Royal Canadian Air Force base being stationed near Winnipeg, but no. It was because the original Jets owner from the 70s, Ben Hatskin, was a fan of the New York Jets. After the original Jets, which debuted in 1972 in the WHA, moved to Phoenix in 1996 to become the Coyotes, Winnipeg was without an NHL team until ownership group True North bought the struggling Atlanta Thrashers and moved them north of the border. If I had a nickel for every time an Atlanta hockey team ended up moving to Canada, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. That being said, there's now relocation rumors swirling around the team due to their playoff futility and attendance decline. Well, Gary Bettman has assured everyone that there's no plans to move the Jets. He said the same thing about Arizona, and look what happened there. Though if they do move again, will they be allowed to be reactivated like the Coyotes possibly will? Anyways, back on track. Instead of simply reusing the old Jets jerseys, the new Jets opted for uniforms that paid tribute to the Royal Canadian Air Force, specifically the Olympic hockey team that represented Canada in 1948. I love the multiple shades of blue used on the blue home and white road with a fantastic logo featuring the jet. This is a jet fighter that screams toughness. I do wish that the blue on the white jersey stopped at the shoulders because it looks odd with the blue running up the sleeves and traditional sleeve stripes at the same time. It's as if they wanted to pay homage to the Jets jerseys from 79 to 90, but also wanted to keep details the same as the blue one, so they put both elements together. 2021 saw them introduce their WHA throwback, which was essentially the same jersey they wore for the 2019 Heritage Classic. It does look nice, especially with the red popping out, plus I'm so into referencing their pre-NHL days too. Last year, they brought in a baby blue alternate, which resembled the 1948 RCAF Olympic jersey that their regular unis are based on, but it was only meant for the RCAF Centennial and was only worn a handful of times. In 2022, Winnipeg added Canada Life as their sponsor patch, an insurance and financial institution headquartered in Winnipeg. I do dig the pop of red, so that's at least nice. So overall, the Jets are definitely decent, and I hope they keep this look. For a team that could have easily just reused looks from their previous incarnation, they wisely didn't and saved that thinking for the alternate. Tomorrow is our first trip to see the Mormons as we look at the Utah Hockey Club. Utah Hockey Club. Established this year, Utah is the youngest franchise in both their division and the entire league. Too bad I can't even do, and now the former Winnipeg Jets, anymore. Well, I guess I can say the team prior started as the original incarnation of the Winnipeg Jets in 1972 in the WHA, joined the NHL in 1979 along with Edmonton, Quebec, and Hartford, and relocated to Phoenix in 1996 to become the Coyotes. This past offseason, the Arizona Coyotes moved to Salt Lake City right as they were bought by Ryan Smith, who also owns the Utah Jazz. The NHL is pulling a Cleveland Browns here, where the Coyotes' history, colors, and records will remain in Phoenix, and Utah is being designated as an expansion team for this year like the Baltimore Ravens were in 1996. The Coyotes will be deactivated in the meantime and have 5 years to build a new arena, or else they will cease to exist. All I can say is that Gary Bettman is trying his damn best to keep hockey in the desert alive, though I say he should have been doing background checks on owners like Al Alex Morello, but let's get back on track. They're going with Hockey Club for just the season because, we gotta establish ourselves first and then settle on a name and logo. Never mind the fact that Colorado and Winnipeg had new uniforms, names, and logos ready to go right after they both relocated and didn't need an extra year to figure that out. The home black and road white are bland and very generic looking with just Utah across the front. Yeah, there's teams like the Rangers and Penguins who have done that before, but those looks came from different time periods where that was both accepted and were more eye-catching, and over time became timeless and classic looks. Nowadays, we're able to do more with our designs, even if it's not always taken advantage of with minimalist designs as well. It's all about context, people. Sure, the PWHL just had the cities with no names in their first season of existence, but that was an upstart league. An NHL team doesn't have this problem these days. Imagine if Vegas and Seattle didn't have names for their first seasons. That would have been awful. 'Tis a shame that they're not moving forward with the name Storm and Mormons. I know last year I commented how the Coyotes Kachina jerseys being brought back gave off vibes of desperately trying to stay in Arizona, but I still like them overall and find them to be incredible. These two jerseys are the opposite and are incredibly boring. They're only appealing to new fans and collectors because they're only here for a single season. I know Ryan Smith tried to do the black and white scheme as well as adding a third color with the Jazz after he bought them, but it flopped and those jerseys are slated for replacement. Seeing him do the same here makes me pray that an awesome logo and name is on the horizon to rectify this for Utah, because these uniforms are as boring as the state itself. You know what's absolutely hilarious? While Utah doesn't have an ad patch, the Coyotes did, and it was for Gila River Casino, the same casino that had their name attached to the Glendale Arena that they got kicked out of. Now that's a lot of irony. Given the fact that these are only lasting for a year and look like they were made in a minute, Utah is garbage. With an eventual new name and logo, the only way is up. That concludes the Central Division. Tomorrow we begin the Pacific Division with the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton Oilers. You almost did it. You almost pulled a reverse sweep in the Stanley Cup final, but you didn't. And now Stan Bowman is your GM. As a Blackhawks fan, have fun! Anyways, debuting in the WHA in 1972 as the Alberta Oilers, the team would change its name to represent just the city of Edmonton the very next year and keep the name when they came over to the NHL in 1979. With a name derived from Alberta's oil industry, the Oilers were originally orange in their early WHA days until switching to royal blue in 1974, which the team would return to in 2022 after their 1996 dark gritty reboot, donning navy, amber, and red for some reason, and being orange in 2017 with the return of royal blue in between those two stints. The home blue and road white are what you immediately think of when the Oilers come to mind. Honestly, they never should have changed looks at all, and not just because they went back to this look a second time. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The team used to have an alternate navy jersey which debuted in 2019, but it was hated, and most fans probably won't miss it, with last season being the last time we'll ever see them wear it. This year, Edmonton gained a sponsor patch in the form of Play Alberta, a gambling website. Of all the ones so far, it's kind of distracting having a star right there as if the jersey has become the good noodle board. Overall, the Oilers are a good redesign, but if it weren't for two failed rebrands, this would be in the classic tier. Hopefully Edmonton sticks with this look for the foreseeable future. Tomorrow we remain in Alberta, but travel south to look at the Calgary Flames. Calgary Flames, originally known as the Atlanta Flames in 1972 and named after the Great Atlanta Fire of 1917, the Flames moved to Calgary in 1980 but kept the name after being established so the NHL could have a team in Atlanta before the WHA could. Yep, it was a rush job out of spite. The only other change made in their Canadian rebrand was going from a flaming A logo to a flaming C, though they could have kept the A and called themselves the Alberta Flames, but that's just me. For the 2020-2021 season, Calgary opted to go back to their classic look from 1980 to 1994 before the pedestal jerseys and when black came into their color scheme, but at least the 2007 Reebok Edge update of their 1998 uniforms was finally put to rest, but not after keeping the home version of that jersey as an alternate for just one season until dropping it. The home red looks wonderful as well as the road white, and the color combo of red and yellow is quite bright, but fire itself is bright unless it's dying down. I do kind of miss black in their main color scheme, as while I like this look, it does also scream a bygone era. Their black alternate introduced in 2022 with the flaming horse logo dubbed Blasty was based on their first reverse retro from the 2020-2021 season, with the most minor difference being the subtle flames on the cuffs. I do think the flames are a good redesign, but I wouldn't be opposed to a new look that has black in it. Sure, every team has that classic look, but it's also not a bad idea to try and evolve if necessary. Join us tomorrow when we head to the Pacific Northwest to go over the Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver Canucks. Established in 1970 with minor league predecessors stretching as far back as 1945, with the name being a nickname for Canadians, the Canucks have had a complicated uniform history. There's no true evolution. They've had completely different color schemes and looks from one another, with a certain look being considered one of the worst of all time. However, a tweak in 2019 brought the Canucks to normal core status after omitting the city name from above the logo, which Reebok did in 2007 when Vancouver returned to being blue and green after a decade of navy. As a result, the home blue and white road look fantastic, featuring the Orca and Sea combined logo in full view. Their color scheme of blue and green is phenomenal, and it boggles my mind as to A, why they changed it in the 70s, and B, why it took them 29 years to return to blue and green. Not to knock on some of their other designs in that time period, though at least they stuck with the 1997 logo as opposed to the boring stick and rink from before. Yeah, I know it's a classic logo, but their alternate is kind of a throwback, but also has some modern elements. The core of this black beauty references their black road from 1985 to 1997, dubbed the plate of spaghetti jersey or skate jersey, depending on who you ask. They changed the background of the logo to black, as yellow on white was never easy to read. Some subtle V's on the stripes to reference the stick and rink, and their current number kit, as opposed to the block font that this design originally had. I do wish they colored the collar like the 50th anniversary throwback from 2019, just to give it a little more color and break up the black. 2022 saw Vancouver add TD Bank as their sponsor patch, and like Winnipeg, I dig that this is color coordinated with their two main jerseys and doesn't look as bad as one would hope, even though I don't doubt many Canucks fans would rather see it gone. Starting this year, BC-based tech company Clio has become Vancouver's road sponsor. All I will say is that at least this is color coordinated too. Overall, the Canucks are decent, as this is only a slight tweak of what came out in 2007, so I'm not going to call it a full-on redesign. What I will say is that I hope they stick with this look for years to come, because Lord knows they have a hard time sticking to one look. Tomorrow we arrive in Tinseltown to look at the Los Angeles Kings. Los Angeles Kings. Part of the 1967 expansion, LA is the oldest team in their division. The name was picked in a fan contest to represent an heir of royalty by owner Jack Kent Cooke, who also owned the Lakers and later the Redskins. And in their first season, the Kings and Lakers not only shared an arena, but also an identical color scheme of golden yellow and purple, or forum blue in the Kings' case, after the Minnesota Vikings and LSU Tigers had popularized it, at least up until 1988 to coincide with the trade for Wayne Gretzky, as well as kick off the trend of teams getting dark gritty reboots, utilizing a new color scheme of black and silver like the Raiders had. They would remain black and silver until purple returned in 1998, though purple was completely removed from the team's lineup again in 2013. In 2011, they'd have a rebrand based on an alternate they gained in 2008. This sort of harkened back to the Gretzky days, except modernized. This was a so-so design which, while it did coincide with 2 Stanley Cups, became boring and dated real quick as the Adidas era went on. However, Fanatics decided to take it upon themselves to bring back the 1988 rebrand, okay, more so the 1992 tweak so the white jersey has black numbers. The speculation was hinted at with LA's throwback jersey that they gained in 2021. The team name's font has been tweaked ever so slightly, but it's still recognizable as the love child of the Chevy bow tie and Lakers logos. In fact, it took me until writing this to realize the logo is meant to be a banner, but someone decided that the name had to be in a box too. Regardless, the black home and white road look phenomenal, but nothing too exciting to look at. However, this is what fans have been clamoring to return, so I can't blame the team for listening to what the fans wanted all this time. Last year, Southern California-based Mercury Insurance became the Kings' home sponsor patch, and thank you, Mercury. Thank you for color coordinating your logo for this. instead of having a random strip of red that would otherwise look way out of place. And starting this year, Virginia-based technology company Iron Bow has become LA's road sponsor patch. This patch is much more subtle than Mercury's at least. The Kings overall are a good redesign. It's nice to see the 90s look back, but I've got a feeling in the back of my head that the team will try something else with their jerseys in a decade or so. Tomorrow we head to the Duck Pond to look at the Kings' Southern Cali rival, the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim Ducks. Coming into the world in 1993 originally as the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, this team was the first to reveal a redesign by Fanatics followed shortly after by LA and Utah. From 1993 to 2006, the Mighty Ducks sported a very 90s color scheme of eggplant purple and jade with a name derived from Disney's 1992 film The Mighty Ducks, a movie about a pee-wee hockey team from Minnesota coached by Emilio Estevez, with a logo that would later be used for the design of Wild Wing from the 1996 cartoon of the same name, which was about alien ducks fighting dragons led by Tim Curry. Disney sold the team in 2005, and in 2006 not only was Mighty dropped from the name, but the color scheme was also changed to black, orange, and gold. The jersey would also controversially feature the team's word mark instead of a proper logo, even after the Ducks won the 2007 Stanley Cup and transitioned to Reebok Edge for the 07-08 season. The team would have a redesign in 2014 based around an alternate jersey they gained in 2010, and man, does almost everyone on the planet hate this look. I was always fine with it, including the duck foot logo being a D, but good lord did people yearn for Wild Wing to return as the main jersey crest. Sure, the team had an alternate starting in 2015 with the logo, but that wasn't enough. So for this season, Fanatics took that orange alternate, ran with it, and gave us these. The orange home definitely beats the previous black home with its timeless use of arm and hemline stripes as opposed to curved stripes and no hemline. The white road follows in the home's footsteps, and I think takes a page out of Nashville's playbook by having orange on the shoulders and cuffs to help break up the white. To me, it's reminiscent of the Milwaukee Brewers 2020 redesign, where they brought back their classic glove logo that everyone loves, but paired it with the navy blue from their prior look instead of royal blue from their classic look. And for those who wish the Ducks had kept their D logo, now it's on the shoulders. Last year, Western National Property Management became the team's jersey patch, but only at home. Not sure if the team plans to add it to their road jersey or what. So overall, the Ducks are a good redesign after they desperately needed one. Tomorrow we have one last stop in California with the San Jose Sharks. San Jose Sharks. Debuting in 1991, the Sharks kicked off the NHL's expansion over the course of the 90s up until 2000 and arrived on the scene with a 90s color scheme of teal and black with a name derived from the Bay Area's nickname of Red Triangle due to the large shark population. As the Bay Area replacement for the long-defunct California Golden Seals, who originally debuted in 1967, the Sharks uniforms have seen changes over the years, with the teal getting progressively darker until a 2022 back to basics redesign which brightened the teal again, and the return of hemline stripes, all while staying as its own thing and keeping the second version of the logo introduced in their 2007 Reebok redesign. The home teal is a beautiful clean look, but I can't help but think that this needs a little black. Prior to this, the Sharks always wore black shorts and helmets with their teal jerseys, and while I've gotten used to this, it still bugs me. However, I love the jersey on its own and even dig the number font they chose. I dig the road white, and I feel the teal helmet and pants are a better match here than with the all teal look, though we did also see this paired with a white helmet as well. The only time you will see black shorts and a black helmet is with their black alternate, which, unlike black jerseys of Sharks past, is more unique than a simple color swap. Dubbed Cali Fin, this features their shoulder logo as the main crest with the cuffs and below the hemline mimicking waves. It's neat, and I started to dig the fin on the front as time went on. Plus, it's all on Celebrini to completely sell this look, right? No ad patch this year, so fans can see Celebrini play without an ad stuck to him. So overall, the Sharks remain a good redesign. Tomorrow we're going to take a gamble and examine the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas Golden Knights. Coming into the world in 2017, the Golden Knights have been hated by all after benefiting from the most favorable expansion draft ever. Yeah, you gotta get butts and seats, especially in a brand new market. But what's gonna happen once the team starts to suck? What then? We'll have to wait and see. Named after the US Army parachute team, Vegas's uniforms haven't changed since their inaugural season, with the gold jersey making its debut in the COVID-shortened 2021 season. Gold would become the team's primary home the next year, which coincided with the Cup win, which means it's staying for years to come. Adidas tried their best to make this home gold work because gold jerseys look either gaudy or look like diarrhea. So they made this jersey sparkly, and up close, yeah, it looks good. But look at it from a distance and you've lost me. The sparkly effect is completely lost if you're watching a game on TV or from the stands, and Fanatics has yet to improve on it. However, I still gotta give them credit for trying and attempting to right the wrongs of past gold jerseys. The road white is a whole lot better, and I'd say the same about the steel gray alternate, though I wish the steel gray was still the home jersey. I realize they're the Golden Knights, but there's a reason gold jerseys never work. Circus Sports became the team's home sponsor patch in 2022, which is a little too on the nose, a sportsbook having their logo attached to a Las Vegas team. Why don't they have it on their road jersey? Who knows, maybe they're gonna make a deal with the casino for that one next. Despite me liking the white and steel gray jerseys, the gold jersey drags them down to meh. They tried. They really tried to make gold work as not just the primary color of a jersey, but also have it be their main home jersey. But gold was never meant to be a main color. It's a secondary or tertiary color meant to highlight other colors. If Vegas kept steel gray as their main home, I'd have this as decent instead. Tomorrow we conclude the Western Conference with the Seattle Kraken. Seattle Kraken, the league's newest team, which debuted in 2021, not counting retcons. The Kraken not only gave Seattle a third team after the Sonics relocated to Oklahoma City to become the Thunder, but also share a similar color scheme to the Seahawks and Mariners, but still very aquatic to fit the theme. The team chose the mythical creature as its name to honor Seattle's maritime culture, though is it a coincidence that while sharing a region with the Canucks that they choose something bigger than an orca? Just saying. Their home navy, which they referred to as deep sea blue, sure, is stunning, and I love the two other shades of blue to help complement it, and I also dig the use of red, especially in the eye of the logo. Yeah, Seattle teams love their blues and greens, but I don't mind some differentiation. The white road is equally gorgeous, no complaints here. I guess all that's left to wait for is an alternate after seeing such beauties as Reverse Retro in last year's Winter Classic. Last year, the team added an ad patch, but unlike every other sponsor patch ever and the ones that I'm going to talk about after this one advertises the Muckleshoot Indian tribe. This is so heckin' wholesome that honestly, it makes for the best ad patch ever. So all in all, the Kraken's uniforms are decent. That concludes the Western Conference. Join us tomorrow when we begin the Eastern Conference in the Metropolitan Division with the New York Rangers. New York Rangers. Coming into the world in 1926, the Rangers are the oldest franchise in their division, and like the Blackhawks, are one of the original 6 teams. Team founder Tex Rickard saw the New York press refer to the team as Texas Rangers as a play on of the real-life Texas Rangers, and the name stuck. And ironically, the world would gain a sports team named the Texas Rangers over 4 decades later. Their uniforms evolved and stayed mostly the same with the exception of 1946 as well as 76 to 78. The latest non-template related change came in 1987 when the blue road switched back to saying Rangers instead of New York like it had since 1978. Of course, throughout different templates from companies such as CCM, Reebok, and Adidas, Fanatics has kept the Rangers uniforms practically the same, resulting in the home blue and road white being the timeless looks they always have been. New York is the last team to use a word mark on their regular jerseys full-time, not counting temporary jersey changes. I think at this point in time, we as a society have accepted this as the Rangers look, even with the crowd that wishes New York just used their crest across the front. Speaking of the crest, it did return on a jersey last year on their navy blue alternate, dubbed the Blue Shirts. The ridiculous amount of arm stripes combined with the darker blue was meant to reference New York's nightlife, and as someone who visited Manhattan this past summer, I can confirm it's just about like that. Some people don't like the arm stripes, but I think it adds some uniqueness to New York's lineup as opposed to being a simple palette swap. The team did say they're wearing this up to the 26-27 season, but whether they keep it or drop it by then is anyone's guess. Perhaps a Statue of Liberty throwback for the 27-28 season, although they were going to do that under Adidas, but it was cancelled! Yay. No ad for this year, though if the Penguins throwback is anything to go by, spoilers, the inevitable ad will be on the left side of the jersey rather than on the right side, though they did have the 2014 Stanley Cup patch on the shoulder, but who knows what they do. Overall, the Rangers are a classic that keeps with tradition, much like similar classic looks such as the Yankees. Tomorrow we will go to Long Island to examine the New York Islanders. New York Islanders. Introduced in 1972 so the WHA couldn't put their own team in New York, and with a name derived from their location, as well as a color scheme derived from the Giants and Dodgers just like the Mets did, the Islanders' uniforms were originally a constant evolution until a controversial uniform change in 1995. It had waves, it added teal, it screamed the 90s, and there was a fisherman on the front, and that's what people referred to it as such. The fisherman is up there with some of the most reviled uniforms in sports history, and while I always thought it was cool, I can't deny history and the negative impact it had on the team. 1997 saw them replace the fisherman logo with the classic logo, but it was merely a stopgap until the Islanders went through a dark gritty reboot in 1998, swapping the royal blue for navy. And just like that, the Isles went from Batman and Robin to Batman Begins. After a Reebokification in 2007 that I keep forgetting exists, the Isles went back to basics in 2010 based around a throwback alternate they gained in 2008, and they've kept this look throughout the rest of Reebok, all of Adidas, and now into the Fanatics era. It's meant to homage the 73 to 77 look, indicated by the white cuffs as opposed to the blue cuffs from when they won 4 straight Stanley Cups. Speaking of which, they even tweaked the logo so that there were 4 lines on the stick rather than the previous 3 to hammer in that 80s dynasty of winning 4 straight Stanley Cups. In terms of the jerseys, the home blue and road white are marvelous, and I never felt the need for the Isles to try and differentiate their color scheme from the Oilers. Ironic that both teams began playing the same year. I guess navy would be neat to see the Isles play in for that bit of reference to the 2000s, but it's not absolutely necessary in my eyes. They had an alternate that they retired after last season, which was based on their 2014 Stadium Series jersey. Maybe we'll see an orange jersey in its place? Who knows? Since New York has worn these for over a decade now, they're at decent and are 6 years away from moving up to classic. Wow, 2010 will be 20 years old in 6 years? God, do I feel old. Tomorrow will be our last stop in the New York metro area with the New Jersey Devils. New Jersey Devils. This franchise originally debuted in 1974 as the Kansas City Scouts, sporting a color scheme of blue, red, and yellow. The team was terrible, attendance was poor, ownership was losing money thanks to the WHA taking potential talent, and an economic downturn in the Midwest during that time forced the Scouts to be sold to a new Denver-based ownership group led by Vickers Petroleum founder Jack Vickers, who relocated the team in 1976 to become the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies would keep the Scouts' color scheme, and things weren't much better. Not even the addition of Don Cherry made them a formidable force. With Vickers Petroleum failing and the team having an unfavorable arena lease with no revenue from parking, concessions, or advertising, the team moved again in 1982 to the arena at the Meadowlands Sports Complex in East Rutherford, New Jersey, next to Giants Stadium. Of course, with the move came some caveats. The New York metro area belonged to the Rangers and Islanders, and New Jersey was even part of the Philadelphia Flyers market. As a result, the franchise had to compensate all 3 teams for encroaching on their territory. After that debacle, the team would be renamed to the New Jersey Devils, named after the mythical Jersey Devil with a color scheme of red and originally green. Red makes sense for the name, but green was speculated to reference the New Jersey Pine Barrens. Green would be replaced by black in 1992. The uniforms would then stay the same until Adidas took over in 2017, which saw the Devils drop the hemline stripe and make the arm stripes chunkier. Why? Apparently to reference the Rockies, but is it enough to care? Not a chance. Oh wait, there's a strip of black running along the bottom that you'll never see because they wear black shorts. As a result, the home red and road white look naked. The core design is still there, but now it resembles one of those early Reebok uniforms like the Maple Leafs or even any of the ones with vertical piping. They might as well be nightshirts. And the fact that Fanatics hasn't corrected this yet is unacceptable. All we can hope is that it gets course corrected in a year or two. They had a heritage jersey in the 18-19 season which replicated their original home white from 1982. Why couldn't we get this but in red and black? Hell, even both of their reverse retros kept the hemline stripes. Their black alternate introduced in 2021 finally gave New Jersey a black jersey after only ever being able to experience such a thing through fashion lines. Hey, I'll give them credit for not just doing a palette swap as easy as it would have been, on top of paying homage to an older New Jersey-based team, the Newark Bulldogs. However, I still maintain that this is unacceptable. You want to do the shoulder stripes like the Blackhawks 2019 Winter Classic? Fine. But surely there had to have been other other designs on the drawing board besides having Jersey on the front in a pretty neat cursive font, if I must say. It's the Jersey, and I think someone even did the hat to go with this. I think I would have preferred doing a roundel as opposed to a word mark. Word mark jerseys are already mixed in the hockey world unless you're the Rangers. Apparently they're contractually obligated to wear it for 3 years, and this is the last year of it in their rotation. Will they replace it with anything else? Who knows? Last season, we saw New Jersey add RWJ Barnabas Health as their sponsor patch, which might have worked on this jersey had they color coordinated the logo to match, but no. There's now some blue on the Devils' home jerseys. Why isn't it on the road? I wouldn't doubt they'll put a different ad patch on their road jerseys whenever that happens. Frankly, the Devils need to redesign their uniforms again and bring back the hemline stripe. I almost considered putting this at meh because the logo was carrying this design, and while it surely is, it's not enough. Everything around it is lacking. Hopefully things turn up tomorrow with the Philadelphia Flyers. Philadelphia Flyers, one of the 6 teams introduced in the 1967 expansion, the Flyers uniforms have been a constant evolution since their inception, though the team started wearing black more in the late 90s around the same time the Eagles and Sixers got dark gritty reboots. Their color scheme of orange and black was derived from Philadelphia's previous NHL team, the Philadelphia Quakers, and the name was chosen because it fit Philadelphia. Last year, the team gained a redesign which has been controversial to say the least. After the 2007 Reebokification of Philly's uniforms, the team went back to basics in 2009 by promoting their orange throwback to main home after its introduction a year prior. The team would take that and the white version used in the 2010 Winter Classic and wear them from 2010 to 2023. Last year, the shade of orange darkened to burnt orange and the armbands widened, which was nice as the orange had gotten brighter under Reebok, and finally double numbers can fit within the space provided instead of going outside the lines. On the other hand, the arm numbers went from multi-layered to single-layered. How does it all come together? I think the orange home and white road both look nice. I'm not as bothered by the single-colored numbers as much as others, though I was bothered by it originally. I've just gotten used to it. I wish the hemline stripe was more prominent though. One unique aspect to the Flyers is the nameplates being in a contrasting color. This is a historic decision. Of course, 1977 was the year the NHL required last names on all jerseys. The Flyers had last names on their white home starting in 1972, but not on the orange road. At some point in the mid-70s, I couldn't find the exact date, the Flyers were playing a nationally televised playoff game on NBC on the road, and NBC wanted Philly to have last names on the orange jerseys. Without much time to make orange nameplates, the team simply swiped the nameplates off their white jerseys and slapped them on the back of the orange ones. Of course, this element didn't stick forever and would only become a regular scene starting in 2009, but it definitely helps the Flyers stick out from the rest of the pack. They do have a black jersey much like they had from the 90s and 2000s, but it's a recycled jersey. This was first introduced in the 2017 Stadium Series under Reebok against the Penguins, and for some reason Adidas was keen to hold on to it. This looks okay, but looks out of place with the giant sleeve numbers and having black numbers on a black background. Surely Adidas could have made a black jersey in this current format. I hope Fanatics rectifies this in the near future. To coincide with last year's uniform change, the Flyers added Independent Blue Cross, or IBX, as their sponsor patch. All I can say is that it looks strange with that random blue on the front of all 3 Flyers jerseys. I acknowledge this is a hot take, but I think the Flyers are a good redesign. It improves upon their Reebok redesign, and honestly the single layered numbers aren't as bad as people have made them out to be. Tomorrow we travel to western Pennsylvania and visit all the Yinzers in order to examine the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pittsburgh Penguins, our last 1967 expansion team. The Penguins got their name from their original home, Mellon Arena, which resembled an igloo, though that was originally used for opera and the roof could open. Their original color scheme was powder blue and navy, as they were both icy colors. However, in the middle of the 79-80 season, the Pens changed to the traditional Pittsburgh color scheme of black and gold and yellow after the Steelers and Pirates both won it all in 1979, and was the last time the Pirates were ever in a World Series. The jerseys would have minor tweaks afterwards until the controversial Robo Pen in 1992, though the classic skating penguin returned in 2000 on an alternate which got promoted to full-time in 2002 along with a corresponding white jersey, albeit the skating penguin this time was paired with Vegas gold instead of their classic gold and yellow. Of course, this design would have a Reebokification where the template featured what looked like flippers, and the gold became beige. Frankly, it hasn't aged well. The team would add an 80s throwback back in 2014, and it proved to be so popular that it got promoted to main home with a corresponding road jersey starting in the 16-17 season, bringing back gold and yellow after over a decade of Vegas gold. The black home and white road are immaculate and don't even feel like throwbacks. This is no doubt a look that could have, and many would say should have, continued throughout the 90s and into the 2000s, with my favorite aspect being how much the gold and yellow pops on both of them. I sincerely hope they keep this look even after Fanatics is finished making NHL jerseys, whenever that happens. In 2021, the Pens gained a throwback to their road jersey from the 90s RoboPen days with the diagonal word mark. Well, technically it's recolored from their first reverse retro, as the shoulders feature the skating penguin instead of RoboPen like the originals. It's decent, but not what I'd call the most exciting in their lineup. If I could make a suggestion, perhaps replace this with a blue throwback. Outside of Pittsburgh's first two Winter Classics, they haven't gone back to that era, and I think it'd be cool if they did. Now, while I did mention before that teams like Calgary and LA look good going back to throwbacks but wouldn't be opposed to them changing to something else in the future, what separates this look from those two? I guess there's just more going on with the design. These jerseys definitely use a lot more gold and yellow than the Pirates and Steelers do on the regular, which I think helps it blend in more with these modern designs compared to the simpler, by comparison, Flames and Kings jerseys. In 2022, Pittsburgh-based healthcare company Highmark became the team's home sponsor patch, which, like the Flyers, gives them a random patch of blue that doesn't belong. And because of how the word mark is situated on the throwback, the sponsor patch has to go on the left side instead of the right because there's simply no room on the right. First National Bank became their road sponsor patch last year, and unfortunately isn't color coordinated either, which sucks. I didn't realize until editing that the First National Bank patch is embroidered directly onto the jersey. Who made that decision? Highmark is a patch, so there was no reason to do that. Despite that, the Penguins are a good redesign. It's amazing how going back to throwbacks could look so timeless. Tomorrow we head down south to look at the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina Hurricanes, originally debuting in 1972 as the New England Whalers in the WHA, the team in 1979 saw a name change to the Hartford Whalers once they transitioned to the NHL. The Whalers' color scheme was green and blue, and while they looked mostly the same from 79 to 92, the 92-93 season saw blue become more dominant than their tried and true green, with gray being added. Thanks to bad ownership courtesy of team owner Peter Karmanos, who originally bought the Whalers in 94, 1997 ended up being the last year of Major League Hockey in Connecticut, as the team would pack up and move to North Carolina. To Charlotte, where the Hornets and Panthers were? No, to Raleigh! There was a new arena being built there that could accommodate hockey, whereas the Charlotte Coliseum had rapidly aged to where the Hornets would relocate to New Orleans not too long after. And since he couldn't get a shiny new arena in Hartford, Karmanos would take full advantage of the new Raleigh arena, even though his team would spend their first 2 seasons in their new market playing in Greensboro because the new arena wouldn't be ready until 1999. He would choose the new name Hurricanes without holding any fan vote, though the team name worked as North Carolina does get hit by hurricanes. I want to throw in a disclaimer that this was written before Hurricane Helene hit, before someone accuses me of sounding insensitive. I wish nothing but the best for all the victims. And a color scheme of red and black derived from their roommates, the NC State Wolfpack. Their uniforms came out in the totally extreme part of the 90s, amidst all the goofy designs and dark gritty reboots featuring a logo trying to make a hurricane look radical. And as someone born in the mid-90s, I'd say they succeeded. They'd stay like this with a tweak in 2013 which made the road white look decent, but the home red was bland. Adidas would improve the red home in 2017, changed the road jersey in 2019, and 2022 saw their black alternate, originally introduced in 2018, become the primary home. This all coincided with an ownership change as Tom Dundon became the Canes' majority owner, while Karmanos was relegated to a minority stake before completely selling his stake in the team soon after. As a result, Carolina's uniform lineup is a messy hodgepodge. The black home is meant to be an improvement of the Reebok version of this, which ran from 08 to 17, except with 2 storm flags instead of 1, because while 1 flag can mean a hurricane, it mostly means a tropical storm, whereas 2 flags always means a hurricane. That's a neat idea, but honestly this jersey could have had so much more going on with it. This thing is begging for some white on the arms and hemline. The lack of it makes this look like a black hole. The jersey on its own also doesn't scream primary. Making this alternate a primary doesn't work unlike other instances, because not just how radically different this jersey is, but you also kept the old home jersey in the team's lineup. This to me is signaling the most delayed rebrand in human history. You would think the first year of the Fanatics changeover would be the perfect opportunity to do this, but I guess not. The logo also has an outline of North Carolina in the negative space between the flags, but why not have an outline of the state behind it to help fill out this logo instead? Their redesigned road jersey from 2019 is easily the worst in their history. I wouldn't mind if this was a faux back alternate that went, well, what if the Hurricanes existed in the 60s, but unfortunately it's not. Why doesn't this have a logo on it? All this does is make me want to drive down the street from my house and grab a Caniac box combo. On top of that, you should have known that most fans aren't into nickname jerseys. Nothing was wrong with the previous road in my eyes. It's certainly a hell of a lot better than this. I don't care if Tom Dundon thinks this is an improvement over the previous version. Though if you want a red version of this to act as the home equivalent, Reverse Retro had you covered. Seriously, throwing back to 2019 and 2022? What? Finally, their red alternate, which, like I mentioned, used to be the home primary. This does look good, but much like the black jersey, this could use some more white. Looking at earlier versions, the white helped balance out the black, whereas the placement of black on the cuffs and hemlines looked like they were dipped in oil. This briefly went away in the 22-23 season and replaced with a throwback, and like I mentioned, the color placement looks a whole lot better than it does on this jersey. Introduced last year, the white Whalers throwback, which is always followed by Whalers fans cursing everyone and everything under the sun. I like it, and it was nice to see them do a different jersey after having the green version before, though I wish they wore this a lot more often. Last year, Carolina added Nucor, who specializes in steel products, as the team's sponsor patch. I like this as it's both color coordinated and subtle, something easy to ignore. Still though, the Hurricanes are in need of a redesign. I don't know any other team in the league with 3 jerseys that have different logos on the front of each of them, and have the primary logo only on an alternate. But like I brought up, it wasn't even originally an alternate. Maybe we'll see new jerseys for Carolina in a year or two, or a full-on rebrand. One can only hope. Tomorrow we head to Ohio to look over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Columbus Blue Jackets. Alongside the Minnesota Wild, Columbus came into the world in 2000 to cap off the NHL's expansion plans, which started back in 1991 with the Sharks. The name stemmed from the Union Army during the Civil War, and the Union uniforms were manufactured in Columbus, as well as Columbus being home to 2 Union bases. They've only ever had one uniform change, which we got in 2007 to coincide with the debut of Reebok Edge, and it was inspired by an alternate that the team had from 03 to 07, but it wasn't a simple promotion like others in this series, as the original had black running up the sleeves, whereas the 2007 redesign omitted the black. It has stayed the same through the Adidas and Fanatics changeovers, and man is this stale. The home blue and road white couldn't be more obvious that they were derived from the early Reebok era with their sleeve piping and lack of a hemline stripe. At least the logo still looks good with the Ohio flag wrapping around a gigantic star, but apart from that, these 2 jerseys merely exist so that the players have something to wear on the ice. Now their fullback alternate. This is actually interesting. This originally debuted in 2010 and features 2 shades of blue, cream, and an old school looking logo. This logo has a Civil War cannon inside a roundel and the team name surrounding it with a star at the bottom. This is easily the best jersey they've ever had because it's so unique. You only ever see fullbacks like this for Winter Classic games, which never become permanent mainstays, at least not any more than 5 seasons. Safelite became their sponsor patch in 2022. I don't think I need to explain what Safelite is because you've most likely seen the ads with the catchy jingle on TV or before a YouTube video, or you've busted your car's windshield and had to call them. It is at least color coordinated, and as expected, it's nothing to get excited over. Their Stadium Series jersey for this season has yet to be revealed at the time of this recording. I'm honestly curious as to what they could possibly have come up with. Overall, the Blue Jackets need a redesign badly. What's sad is that they've never had a look that people universally agree was phenomenal outside of that faux back. Many want the Cannon jersey to be the team's primary, but I prefer an improved design over what they have now instead. Tomorrow we head to DC to wrap up the Metropolitan Division with the Washington Capitals. Washington Capitals. Debuting in 1974 alongside the Kansas City Scouts, the Capitals have had what many consider the worst uniforms in hockey. Why? Well, looking at their original design, which lasted from 74 to 95, yeah, I can see why this goofy design would be detested by many despite the very fitting name and colors for a team in the US capital. The 95-96 season introduced the Screaming Eagle jersey, or Screagle as some call it, with a new color scheme of cobalt blue, copper, and black that even the Bullets would adopt when they rebranded themselves as the Wizards a couple years later. This would be replaced in 2007, and if you thought the Blue Jackets jersey screamed Reebok Edge, well, this one does too. It's meant to be a modern update of their original jerseys, and while I guess this looked decent for its time, man is it showing its age. The home red and road white feature plenty of that old Reebok piping on the sleeves, which Fanatics has carried over, with no real hemline stripe and details that only appear on the front, but not the back. The word mark used is, I guess, a decent update to the campy original, but that alternate W Eagle logo on the shoulders, or Weagle, is begging to be put on the front. It's a shame that the only time that logo has ever been on the front was for the 2023 Stadium Series. Speaking of Stadium Series, their blue alternate that was introduced in the 2020-2021 season is based off their 2018 Stadium Series jersey and manages to be both better and worse than that original. I like the striping used on the arms, and this one actually has a hemline stripe, whereas both elements were solid chunks of red on the original. However, where it drops the ball is the logo. The original said Caps on the front, but unlike other nickname logos, Washington already has the team name on the front anyway, so this nickname jersey wasn't as egregious as others, but I've never felt this W logo. I guess having the Washington monument in the middle of the W is kind of cool, and it has the 3 stars from the DC flag, but the W as a whole is on the same level as the Commanders W. Since this year is the Caps' 50th anniversary, they were able to get special permission from Fanatics, so we've got a 4th jersey, which is a reuse of their second reverse retro jersey from 22-23. I still think this version of the Screagle is cool, but considering Fanatics said no new alternates for every other team, I get the sense that this jersey is in their lineup in lieu of a regular Screagle throwback in the Fanatics inherited Adidas template. I wouldn't doubt it was chosen because while the first Screagle reverse retro was cool, maybe they didn't want 2 red jerseys in their lineup and there was a black jersey during the Screagle era, though that jersey had the Capitol Dome on the front instead. Believe it or not, Washington was the first team to have an ad patch in 2022, and it's Caesars Sportsbook. You know what? Call me when Miller, Bud, Coors, or any other beer company puts a sponsor patch on these jerseys, and maybe I'll come around to it. Starting this year, the Caps Road sponsor patch is everyone's favorite platform, TikTok. I don't like it here any more than when it was on the Leafs helmets. Is it any mystery that the Capitals need a redesign? I suspect that much like the Patriots changing uniforms after Brady left, Washington is going to change their look once Alex Ovechkin isn't on the team anymore. But unlike New England, I sincerely hope Washington comes up with something good and not just repurpose a so-so alternate. That concludes the Metropolitan Division. Come back tomorrow where we'll tackle the Atlantic Division, starting with the Boston Bruins. Boston Bruins. Coming into the world in 1924 with a name stemming from bears and folk tales, the Bruins are another Original Six team, much like the Blackhawks and Rangers. Their original color scheme was brown and golden yellow because team founder and owner Charles Adams owned the grocery store chain First National Stores, which sported that color scheme until brown was swapped for black in 1935 as his son Weston wasn't a fan of brown being used. Ever since, the Bruins uniforms would evolve in the following decades. Last year, they had a brand new jersey lineup for only their 100th anniversary, so of course they dropped it this year and went back to their previous uniforms, which got originally introduced in 2007 under Reebok Edge and inspired by their jerseys that they wore from 55 to 74, with the B inside a wheel and the golden yellow shoulders being elements from that old design. Boston had just come off from the over-the-shoulder armbands that they gained in 1995, and hey, this design seemed like a good way to go back to a classy look rather than simplify and Reebokify like many other teams were doing around this time. The black home is incredible as well as the white road. The color combination of black and golden yellow just pops. While I was editing, the Celtics possibly leaked a Bruins throwback in a promotion wishing them luck for this upcoming season, but nothing official has been announced as of this recording. 2022 saw the team add Rapid7, a Boston-based cybersecurity company, as their sponsor patch. It's one of the more subtle patches and is is easy to ignore, which is frankly the best thing an ad patch could ever be. So overall, the Bruins are decent, and I can't believe it'll be 3 more years until it has truly reached classic status. And being that I was only 12 when these jerseys came out, I've suddenly started finding gray hairs, unless the team decides to change their uniforms again under Fanatics. Tomorrow we look at our last American Original Six team, the Detroit Red Wings. Detroit Red Wings. This team was originally introduced in 1926 as the Detroit Cougars because their original ownership wanted to pay tribute to the then recently dissolved Victoria Cougars with a color scheme of red and white, and on a side note fits with the Tigers for Detroit Cat teams. Fun fact, in their first season, not only did they not play in Detroit itself, but they didn't even play in America. They were playing in Windsor, Ontario, which, yes, is a neighboring city, but that's a whole lot different from, for instance, the Giants and Jets playing in New Jersey. At least they're still in the same country. This would be rectified the next year in 1927. In 1930, the name was renamed to Detroit Falcons due to a newspaper promotion because the team was struggling and tried anything to get support from the local populace. The team would find James Norris as their new owner in 1932. Norris was a former player himself who played for the Montreal Amateur Athletic Association, and his team's nickname was the Winged Wheelers. Seeing how a name and logo like that would be fitting for the Motor City, the team became the Detroit Red Wings, and that's where we got the team's current logo and their iconic design. Of course, it evolved slightly over the years, with 1987 being when we'd get what they have now after years of having the wheel be directly in the middle of the jersey, though a logo update would occur in 1984 and a number font which only lasted in the 82-83 season. The red home, while simple, has endured for years, and there's a reason it's the iconic look that it is today because of the players who have worn it as well as the success they've had. Now, you probably expect me to rip on this design a bit as it is very simple and has a strip of white at the bottom instead of a traditional hemline stripe, but I'm not going to. What separates this from other simplified designs is that this actually stuck around. Maybe if other simplified designs from around the sports world stuck around, we'd all be singing their praises. Though if I had one gripe about this, I've never been a fan of the matching collar. For some reason, they've always opted to have the collar be red like the rest of the jersey, and especially on the current template, I don't like it. Surely a splash of white would have been nice. By contrast, the white road has much more going on and has plenty of red to help break things up. Sometimes I'm not into the road jersey being different from the home jersey, but after seeing their first reverse retro, which was colored swapped from the red, yeah, I much prefer what they actually have. They're the only teams who have never had an alternate jersey in a season outside of outdoor games or special jersey programs. Hell, Montreal had a year where they featured an alternate, but at the same time, do they need one? I'd argue no, even a black alternate would feel forced. As of the time of this recording, their uniforms for the 2025 Stadium Series have yet to be announced, much like their opponent, the Blue Jackets. They'll all be sure to cover both on TikTok once they are revealed. Last season, Detroit added Priority, a Michigan-based waste management company, as their sponsor ad. No, I did not mean sponsor patch. You can't call it a patch because someone made the genius decision to directly embroider it onto the jersey, meaning the only way anyone could remove this is by getting a seam ripper and plucking out each and every thread used to make this. Who thought of that? First the Penguins road jersey and now this! This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen a team from any sport do with an ad patch, and I don't know how it could be topped. Okay, rant about embroidering ads aside, the Red Wings are a tried and true classic that should never go away, even if I'm not a fan of them. Tomorrow we look at one of the most successful and yet simultaneously one of the most miserable franchises in the league, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto Maple Leafs. Debuting in 1917, the Leafs were originally known as the Toronto Arenas as they were named after their home stadium, Arena Gardens, and a color scheme of blue and white coming from hand-me-down jerseys from the then recently disbanded Toronto Blue Shirts of the National Hockey Association. 1919 saw a name change to the Toronto St. Pats after an ownership change due to previous ownership declaring bankruptcy, and a name and color scheme designed to reference and attract Toronto's Irish population. Of course, as we all know, 1927 saw the team be renamed to the Toronto Maple Leafs after Conn Smythe took control of the team with a name derived from the national symbol of Canada. The team would soon after change back to blue and white as their color scheme to reference the Canadian skies and snow after initial rumors stated that they changed to Canada's colors of red and white. As the decades rolled on, the uniforms evolved as well as the Leaf itself, with 1970 giving us the simplest look the Leaf ever received. Nicknamed the Ballard Leaf as it came into existence under the ownership of Harold Ballard, the simpler 11-point Leaf endured the longest out of the Leaf designs until 2016, when Toronto had a uniform change to coincide with the last season under Reebok. The new Leaf paid tribute to their logos from 1928 to 1967, while the jersey itself changed its hemline stripe after its 2010 return. The home blue is a timeless look in addition to the road white. It's simple and very much gets the point across. The return to a more complicated Leaf was the best way to go after nearly 50 years of the simpler Ballard Leaf, and I dig how it pays homage to their early history. In 2021, the Leafs gained their first alternate ever that wasn't a throwback, colored all black, and was dubbed Next Gen. Made in collaboration with Adidas as well as big Leafs fan and most hated musician of the early 2010s, Justin Bieber, and his company Drew House. We got the Leafs in black, which I've never been into. Apparently this really appeals to the younger crowd, but nearing 30 myself, I can't say I relate. No joke, the first time I saw these in action, I was in a hotel room in Montreal and a Leafs French broadcast was on, and I was disgusted seeing them look like this after a quick camera shot of Bieber from the stands. Also, TikTok was their helmet sponsor at that time, which made this uniform scream trendy even more. Apparently, the Toronto skyline is visible on the logo and arm stripes, but trying to focus on either of those elements makes my eyes hurt. The jersey is also unique for being reversible like my old basketball practice jersey, except here, the other side reveals yellow and the Drew House logo as the Leaf, but honestly, I could do without that. This definitely feels like a fashion jersey that somehow found its way onto the ice. Finally introduced last year, the St. Pat's faux-back. No, it's not a true throwback, as the St. Pat's ironically never featured a clover on their jerseys. It does look nice, however, since the previous St. Pat's jersey in the Leafs lineup was also white, I would have much preferred a green one. I assume they went with white so the clover would stick out more. Oh, and that stripe doesn't continue on the back. Yay. The Leafs have had a jersey with a body stripe that continued on the back. Why doesn't this one do the same? And to think this was the last new jersey that Adidas came out with. In 2022, Toronto added a milk sponsor patch from the Dairy Farmers of Ontario, which I can get behind as I always love to see support for farmers. Unlike Priority for Detroit, this doesn't appear to be embroidered directly onto the jersey, so I'll give them points for not pulling that. Very fitting that they have Oreo as their helmet ad starting this year. Makes more sense with milk than TikTok ever did. So overall, despite their lackluster alternates, the Leafs are a good redesign, and hopefully Fanatics doesn't try to screw with their look in the upcoming years. Tomorrow we'll examine the Leafs' French-Canadian arch-rival, the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal Canadiens, Le Club de Hockey Canadien, or Habs as we all know, began play in 1910, originally in the National Hockey Association, until joining the NHL in 1917. Montreal is the oldest in their division, of the original 6, and of the entire league. With a name from the French spelling of the country's citizens and a color scheme derived from the French flag, the Habs have mostly looked the same for their entire existence, with their current uniform stretching as far back as 1947 with little to no changes. The red home is a nice look that's instantly recognizable and full of detail thanks to the addition of the blue body stripe that somehow in the year of our Lord 2024 is the only one in use that actually goes all the way around the body instead of stopping in the middle. The white road went through the most changes until going to this look in 1947 after it had a brief stint having a body stripe in 1944. I used to think that Montreal should have the road match the home, but after thinking about it and even looking at their past white jerseys, I'm kind of glad that they went for something different. It all mostly pertains to the back. While white numbers stand out against a red and blue background, I can't say the same for white numbers on a white and blue background. Yeah, the numbers outline, but it doesn't stand out as much as you'd hope. The throwbacks that the team has done of this jersey sported red numbers, and that stood out even less, not helped by the shade of blue used being darker than usual for some reason. One unique aspect to Montreal's uniforms is the NHL logo itself. It has LNH for the French acronym of the league name rather than the standard NHL that the other 31 teams use. If the Nordiques were still around, there's no doubt in my mind they'd have this too. No alternates, and no one's sure yet if Fanatics will try to introduce that for the Habs, though I doubt it happened considering how much Montreal clings to tradition. The team had Royal Bank of Canada as their home jersey sponsor patch for 22-23, but then added Air Canada to be put on road jerseys last year. At least in both cases, the colors of both logos match with what the Habs wear, even if they looked so much better without them. The Habs are a quintessential classic, as if you couldn't guess. Tomorrow we'll quickly dip back across the border to look at the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo Sabres. Debuting in 1970 alongside the Vancouver Canucks, the Sabres looked mostly the same for the first couple decades and a half of their existence. They had a color scheme of royal blue and gold and yellow, and named after a weapon that could be used for offense and defense, and spelled the English way instead of the American way. Why? Well, the name was the result of a fan vote, and whoever submitted the name just spelled it that way. I'm assuming a Canadian submitted it based on that fact alone. Buffalo is next to the border after all. Of course, as I'm sure we all know, the Sabres had a dark gritty reboot dubbed The Goat Head in 1996 to coincide with their new arena opening, but unlike other examples where the normal colors darkened, Buffalo completely changed to black and red. This would stay until the return to blue and yellow in 2006, kind of. The yellow was its usual golden shade, but the blue was navy instead of royal, and the Buffa slug was introduced as a precursor to Reebok Edge. The jerseys also ushered in front numbers after last being seen in the WHA on teams like the Chicago Cougars. As you can probably tell, no one in the NHL uses front numbers anymore. The team would revert back to their classic logo in 2010, but kept the front numbers in navy blue. This would continue after the Adidas changeover until 2020, when the Sabres made the switch back to royal blue and no front numbers to the cheers of many. So was it worth the wait? Well, I like the home blue, but I wish there was some yellow on the collar to help break up the blue, much like their classic look or even the navy years. I do appreciate the bits of white on the arms and hemline stripes. The road white is the better of the two, as I feel there's plenty to break up the white. That said, the originals also featured the logo on the shoulders too, which helped to break up the colors. Now, putting the regular logo on both shoulders like those originals would be redundant, and was so even back then. So may I suggest the alternate B introduced in the Goat Head days? Speaking of Goat Head, in 2022, the Sabres gained a 90s throwback, which thank God has survived into the Fanatics changeover. It's the 1996 Goat Head, but in the current template, and man, this is as beautiful as it was back then. But again, lacking in coloring on the collar. The original had gray and red, whereas this is black like the rest of the jersey. It's still beautiful regardless, just wish some additional detail went into it. If I could add one more jersey to their lineup for next year, it's the white version of the Goat Head. There's Sabres fans that want them to go back to the Goat Head ever since its return, so why not give fans the best of both worlds? The Dolphins and Niners have home and road throwbacks as well. Someone get me in contact with the Pagulas so I can share my ideas. As of this recording, Buffalo does not have a sponsor patch on their jerseys. Will that change soon? Wouldn't shock me. Overall, the Sabres are a good redesign, and any tweaks that I've suggested are what I'd like to see Fanatics add at some point down the line, though let's not get our hopes up. Tomorrow we have one last trip across the border with the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa Senators, one of two teams to debut in 1992. This team was the return of a previously established NHL team, and even sported the same colors of red and black, and a fitting name for the Canadian capital. But much like how the original Jets are treated, the original Ottawa Senators that existed from 1883 to 1934 are treated as a separate franchise from what we have today. Now, that's all well and good, but why a centurion as the logo? What does that have to do with the government of Canada? Well, nothing. It was chosen due to being a strong and prominent figure and a member of the Roman Senate. Hey, it works better than having Justin Trudeau as the logo. Their original look that they debuted with was pretty classy and timeless, albeit a little plain in my eyes, even with the small tweaks that the team would make. 1997 saw the introduction of an alternate forward-facing Centurion logo, as well as red becoming more prominent in the team's lineup. The classic logo with the side profile remained on the white jersey until 2007, when Reebok Edge made the front-facing logo the logo, in addition to updating it. Like many have pointed out, the Senators' Reebok redesign was just recolored from the Penguins, because flippers and Senators make so much sense, right? Or maybe it's because their shortened nicknames rhyme. But whereas the Penguins replaced their Edge redesign before the Reebok era ended, Ottawa kept theirs even after the Adidas changeover, where it aged worse and worse each year. So in 2020, the Sens went back to their roots, as they called it, and brought back their 90s jerseys. Well, if you want to be specific, it's based on the 93 to 95 look because there's no white arm stripe on the black, nor are the numbers red. The white road is missing out on the black cuffs of the original though. Another downgrade is the hemline stripe, as Adidas took the original red stripe from both and made it the entire bottom. Not even some black for the road jersey. As a result, the black home and white road feel lacking compared to what came before. I do enjoy the return of the side profile logo after 2 decades of the front-facing logos. As for alternates, there are none. Not sure if the team plans to bring in a red alternate ever again. Doubt we'll see another jersey with the team's old O logo, since the white and red versions are incredibly rare and would piss off the people that took the time to track them down. Maybe update that black one, but maybe finally feature the Peace Tower on a front crest. But I think what would get me on board with this redesign overall is if these were less monochromatic. Add some white to the home, add some black to the road. They look more balanced that way. Yeah, I said their original look was classy, but surely there was room to update it and bring it into the 2020s, right? Maybe if they didn't make the hemline a blob, I'd be all over this. Last year, Canadian bank CIBC became the team's home sponsor patch, as the road doesn't feature one. Thank God these wordmark logos are the more subtle ones after how prominent Royal Bank of Canada and TD were. So this might be a hot take, but the Senators are meh. I can understand why they want to go back to their roots to scrub away the Reebok jerseys, but surely they could have come up with something more compelling. This is right up there with the Jaguars' recent redesign, in that the team overcompensated after the previous ugly design that came before. Tomorrow we travel to the Sunshine State to look at the Sens' expansion sibling, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay Lightning. Much like the Senators, Tampa began play in 1992 with a weather-inspired color scheme of black, blue, and white, and a fitting name to boot, as apparently the Tampa Bay area is the Lightning capital of North America. Tampa would be predominantly black until a uniform change in 2011 where black became an afterthought. Now, being blue and white wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that there's a more historic blue and white team in both their division and the league overall. Okay, the Leafs feature 2 arm stripes and a single hemline stripe, whereas the Bolts have a single arm and hemline stripe. But if you look at them from a distance, and especially from the back, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. However, objectively speaking, the home blue and white road are pretty good. But if I could improve upon this, add more black. Side note, the white road originally had Tampa Bay above the logo, much akin to how the Canucks had their jerseys set up around the same time. However, the city name would be dropped in 2017 following the Adidas changeover, and became exactly like the home blue. When this was initially revealed, the universal complaint from fans was, where's the black? So they added a black outline on the numbers as well as on the bolt on the shorts, and called it good. Surely we could add black shoulders, black stripes, and even black on the collar, right? By contrast, their black alternate introduced last year brings black back to prominence after the hideous 2018 to 2022 black alternate. Blech. Unlike the Leafs forcing in a black jersey, this historically makes sense for the Lightning. We've got a nice balance of blue and white to go with the black. However, Tampa opted to have their shoulder patch logo be the front crest, much like what the Sharks did with their recent black jersey. Fancy that these both came out around the same time. After I originally recorded this, the Bolts gained a home sponsor patch in the form of the YMCA. Now I've just got the Village people buzzing in my head. But overall, I would prefer to see the Lightning do a redesign, if not because they look too much like Toronto, and to bring black back to the forefront of their uniforms. If the Maple Leafs didn't exist, this would be a decent. Later today, we conclude this series with the defending champions and southernmost team in the league, the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers. Didn't think I'd ever see the Florida Panthers win it all. That you had the whole world scared that you were going to pull a 2004 ALCS on us. Well, you still prevailed at the end to close out the Adidas era. Back on track. Florida debuted in 1993 with a color scheme of red, navy, and yellow, and named after the actual Florida Panther that occupies South Florida. Their original look lasted until 2007 with a flip-flop between wearing red or navy blue, as Reebok would Reebokify the Panthers unis, which have aged so poorly. They'd removed the piping in 2011, but the whole format was still the same. They might as well have just kept the gaudy piping. Everything, however, would change in 2016 following Vincent Viola's purchase of the team. Gone was the Leaping Panther, now we had a Stoic Panther on a shield instead. And on the arms, the Florida state flag with prowling panthers above them. And if you're a captain, you get a special patch on your arm too, in addition to the standard C or A patch. So how does it all come together? Well, the home red and road white are nice clean looks whose body stripe actually extends to the arms, but not to the back. It still amazes me that Montreal is still the only team right now to have gotten this right, because I don't know about you, but it's really distracting without the stripe on the back, and yet it's right there in the front. I think I'd trade the body stripe here for a hemline for the sake of my OCD. And while I don't care much for the numbers being on top of the shoulders like in football, it does at least add some uniqueness to these jerseys because currently no one else does that. I'm also surprised to see the lack of a third. While it would be easy to just take the red jersey and make it navy, perhaps a throwback, seriously, I'm surprised that neither reverse retro was ever promoted to full-time alternate. That's something I'd like to see the team consider for next season. As for jersey ads, Florida first had AutoNation on only the road jersey in 2022, then added LaCroix for home last year. Now while the Leaping Panther is a classic look by all means, this redesign is still good on its own. Maybe one day Fanatics could continue the body stripe onto the back of both jerseys, but frankly, I've never been bothered by this look like many other hockey fans have. So that will do it for this month, but if you've been following my channel, it's not over for me just yet, as November will see me ranking every NBA uniform for this upcoming season. I want to thank everyone who's been discovering me and those that have stuck by me ever since my first upload. The support really means a lot to me. Yeah, every channel on the planet has said that, but it's true. This is a hobby for me as well as a part-time job, so I appreciate that I can inform and entertain as many people as humanly possible. As for the NHL, the uniforms are fine for now, as early reviews of Fanatics Premium and Made in Canada jerseys confirm that they are fully dedicated to righting the many wrongs that their company has become known for. The base level breakaway jerseys are the same as they were in the Adidas era, so there's no surprise there. I do hope that the teams that need a redesign do more than bringing back old looks like the Kings, or at least mix old and new like the Ducks, as I'd like to see something new be tried. Anyways, be sure to leave a comment, follow me on Twitter, follow me on TikTok, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you all later.